Welcome to another episode of So You're Ready to Date. And this one was inspired by something I see a lot of on TikTok. And that is this idea of if they wanted to, they would. Have you run into that in your relationship? How do you interpret that within your relationship? And is that grounds for saying, red flag, this is not it? Is this time to break up? Is it time to have a conversation? So, we're going to talk all about if they wanted to, they would. Remember, this always goes both ways. Yes, you want your partner to want to do those things for you, but it also can kind of be, are you wanting to do things for said partner in the same way that you're expecting it to be reciprocated? So we're just going to dive in, kind of see where this goes, see what we stumble upon, because I think this is an idea. It's not new, but it has different language now. And how do we interpret someone's interest in us in a relationship? And are we even necessarily on the same page moving forward here?
And I think it's really interesting because when you and I first started even talking about this, we were both coming at it from slightly different angles, really talking about the same thing, but coming at it from slightly different angles. So I'm really excited to dive into today's topic just because I think that there are so many facets to it. And I think that the same as everything, there's two sides to the same coin. And this can be taken either way when you're talking about the if they wanted to, then they would.
Yes. Coming at it from this point of if they wanted to, because where I think I was coming mostly from, like almost these big gestures. If they wanted to, they would bring you flowers every week. If they wanted to, they were going to take you all these fancy places. If they wanted to, there would be these grand romantic gestures. And if they're not, then it's time to ditch this relationship and move on to find somebody who will do all of these big things. Now, I'm not against big romantic gestures, but they're not sustainable, right? You can't always be doing these big grand things. So, how can you how can you define what if they wanted to, they would means for you? Because I think we can get in our heads again. Social media is really great at this, right? Of being like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And if it's not doing that, then maybe this is not the right relationship for you. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. What does if they wanted to, they would mean for you? Does it mean texting when they said they would? Does it mean showing up at the right time? Does it finding out what that means for you will go a long way to helping you see, is this a red flag, or are we just in a territory where maybe we need to have a little clearer communication?
Well, and I think that it even kind of goes beyond that. So let's back up and say that you have gone on a date or two with somebody and you're feeling some chemistry and you're feeling like you want to get to know this person. And every time you're asking this other person if they want to hang out is, nope, sorry, I can't. I've got this obligation. Or no, sorry, I can't. I got that obligation. Or no, sorry, I'm tired. I can't come over right now. And then you hop online and you see them scrolling through social media or commenting on social media. I think that's where I was kind of coming from was if they wanted to see you, then you would be a priority and they would make time for you. Now, when you're talking about those big grand gestures, you're right. I my personal opinion, and it's just an opinion, somebody else could have a different opinion, is that's not sustainable. And if it is, they're no longer the big grand gestures and you're constantly searching for the next thing. It's like if you live right next to the ocean, you take the ocean for granted. It's just part of your everyday life. If you're getting flowers every other day, suddenly you're getting flowers every other day, and that's just part of your life. And it becomes really noticeable when that's not part of your life anymore because we're expecting something that maybe isn't sustainable or wasn't ever meant to be sustainable. So I think there's a little bit of a nuance there with the if they wanted to, they would, regarding are you getting the attention that you deserve versus are you getting the over the top romantic gestures that you're looking for?
Right. Because then that dopamine hit when it comes from the flowers, is not going to be the same. It's a weird way to kind of make it make sense. But like when you're a drug addict, yeah, the first hit is really fun and nice, but it takes more and more to kind of reach that same high. So I think it's kind of the same thing with like those grand romantic gestures where it's, yes, it was really great in the beginning, but now it's going to need to be flowers and chocolate. And then the next time it's flowers, chocolate, and jewelry. And then the time of that is flowers, chocolate, jewelry, and a weekend away. So you always have to like continually up that ante for you to still get that same rush, that same sensation that maybe you did when they first started bringing you flowers. And like you said, I don't know, very rarely are you dating that billionaire who just has money to burn. It's usually probably somebody who has a budget who can't continually kind of up the ante every single time. But like it's not anything that will be consistent. And at a certain point, I think you get complacent to the fact that, oh, yeah, it's Tuesday, so it's flower day. Oh, yeah, it's Friday, so I guess we're going to go to this fancy restaurant. Finding those ways that sustainably throughout the week that show that if they wanted to, they would. Maybe it's door dashing you coffee when they know you had a late night. Maybe it's, but again, it's that attempt to, I want to do this because I want to be in a relationship with you. And like you said, maybe they're not on the same page when it comes to where they see the relationship with you. And if that's the case, that's the time to start reevaluating, is this the right relationship for me?
Right. I think when I heard this topic, the first thing that I thought of was, am I being put in the back seat? Am I the priority or am I in the back seat? And when it's a brand new relationship or you've gone out on a date or two, are you going to be the front seat, in the driver's seat, number one priority all of the time? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you've got work priorities and you've got other stuff coming up, but are you a priority most of the time? Do they clear their schedule to see you? It's the difference, right? What's the thing that they say? Somebody who, are they somebody who fits you into their schedule where there's an opening, or are they somebody who clears their schedule and makes time for you? And that's kind of where I see that if they wanted to, they would. If they were interested in me, if they wanted to see me, they would figure out how to make it work. Or am I just somebody that's being squeezed in between all of their other obligations when they have a minute here or there? And sometimes that's what it is. They have a minute here or there, and I'm the first thing that comes to their mind, and you make that work. Like, how do you feel you're being prioritized? And there's no hard and fast rule, but if you're not feeling like you're getting the attention that you're looking for in a relationship, go back to your list. Is it matching your list? Are you getting what was on the list? And if not, maybe this isn't the relationship for you.
Excellent point, because I think in the beginning, especially when it's new and exciting and you're like, yes, I will completely ditch plans with the girls because he has a free moment and I'm excited to see him. And sometimes that newness wears off and then your schedule kind of maybe turns back to normal where you can have some openings. You've gotten through a few weeks where you got through the things that you needed to do. Do they make an effort to want to see you? There was also a point when I was first starting to date the guy I'm seeing now, where I knew that he had work priorities. That meant his schedule was tough for him to get big chunks of time. So sometimes we would have an hour here where we would go get coffee, or some evenings he had maybe a couple of hours, but I knew that there was an end point. So I think that's something to take into consideration as well. Is like, if they don't have time in their schedule right now, is it an always thing, or is it just getting through this like tax season if they're an accountant, if they're trying to get through school and they just have to get to the end of May and then they'll have, but so knowing that, yeah, there may be times where you might not be the first priority where they can schedule everything around being able to see you, but are they making that effort when they do have a chance? Is there maybe a light at the end of this tunnel where in like 6 weeks, 2 months, the schedule kind of relaxes and opens up, and then you can start scheduling and seeing each other a more consistent basis for longer times, whatever that is. So again, it's a case by case basis. So to throw the whole relationship away just because right now he can't drop everything or she can't drop everything and come see you feels a little premature and almost a little revengey, if that's a word.
You're right. I think it's so hard because it's a case by case basis. We could sit here and talk in generalities, right? Just like we are. Like, if this is happening, then that's what it is. But it's a matter of what is the intention? Is the intention that you're somebody that he's going to call up at 11 o'clock at night when he wants a booty call? Or are you somebody that he's going to call up at noon when he has lunchtime free and just wants to check in? Now, there's no obligation that you're free, but are they thinking of you during, are they thinking of you in a way that says future potential, long-term relationship? Or are they thinking of you in a way that says, hey, I want you at 11 o'clock at night when I'm lonely and bored? Right? I think that's part of it. And if they wanted to be around you and if they want your company, they will be. But there is no hard and fast rule. It's a matter of, are they taking the time to spend the time with you when they have that time available, or are they using the free time that they have to spend in other ways? Are they choosing to spend their free time in other ways? So yes, maybe they have tickets to the game and they had that before you guys got together, or they've been planning, or he's been planning that with the boys for months, or she's been planning a trip with the girls for months. That's not what I'm talking about, those one-off things. But is it consistently that when somebody has free time, they're doing other things and just calling you up late at night or not calling you at all? Or are they consistently contacting you when they have free time to see if you have availability and to see if there's time that you guys can spend together? And I think that's the deciding factor. Do you feel like you're a priority in their life?
Yes. And it all boils down to what are their actions showing you? So it's very fitting of if they wanted to, they would, because are their actions matching that they would spend more time with you if they had the ability to? It means, like Angie said, are they calling when they have a few moments just to check in? Are they rearranging a meeting just so that you have this time free, and they rearrange something so that they could see you even if it was just for a few moments? So yes, having these conversations and asking where they're coming from and where their head is at with the relationship, but paying attention as always to what their actions are telling you, because we all know people who can talk a really good game and who all of a sudden come back with all of the right words and just at the right time slide in with, oh, but baby, I love you. And yes, I'm committed to this, but no, I can't see you again for another 3 weeks. Again, it's a case by case basis, but generally, if their actions are matching with what they're telling you, it may just be a temporary thing. But as always, listening to your gut too. So sometimes, yeah, it may look on the surface like everything's going well, but maybe you have that like gut feeling, that gut check. It's like, yeah, there's something about this doesn't seem like maybe it's matching up with what I'm looking for. So being real about that too. And it's like, am I just sticking around because I see a potential for something? Or is this, if I wait and give it some time, maybe it's going to turn into what I want it to? It's kind of a you call as you go.
Right. And the other thing I'm going to say, whatever that other person is telling you, whether they're your significant other, whether they're first date material, whether you're in the getting to know you phase, when they show you who they are, believe them. If they tell you that they're busy and they can't hang out, it doesn't do you any good to get upset about it. Believe them. And if that means that they're too busy hanging out with their girlfriends or with their guy friends or with their buddies or whatever that looks like, if they're too busy hanging out, then you're not the priority in that relationship. And that's not the priority, or they're not changing their priorities to make your relationship a priority. That's okay. That just means it's not the right relationship for you. And the sooner you know that, the better. So believe them, and let them show you who they are and what they're looking for.
Right. Because you do deserve something, a relationship that hits. I mean, it's not we're probably going to hit everything on your list. Let's be realistic. But at the end of the day, it should be a relationship that makes you feel prioritized, makes you feel loved and wanted, and, a important part of somebody else's life. Hopefully, because you're doing the same thing for them. You're trying to make them feel loved and wanted and included and prioritized, because you may be looking at it, what are they doing for me, but are you making sure to do the same thing for them? Because maybe is this turn into this like reciprocal thing, we're like, well, she's not doing that for me, so why would I do that for her? So if you've got made a good faith effort to put yourself out there, make them a priority as much as you can, and they're still not giving anything back, then yeah, it's probably time to rethink where the relationship is going. But never to stop your life to see if this is going to be somewhere. Always continue to just go out there, be your awesome self, do the things that you love and bring you joy. And if they are the right person, you guys will figure out a way to make your lives connect and to find time to be with each other.
If I had been smart back in my 20s and I would have listened to us back then, I never would have got married. I wouldn't have, because I would have realized that I wasn't the priority and that I didn't know what being made a priority in somebody's life looked like.
Wow.
And I think that's an important thing. So if you're younger and you're listening to this, really understand what it means to be a priority in somebody's life or to make somebody a priority in your life. And I think that's an important or a key component to having a successful long-term relationship, is not thinking that you're going to fix him or you're going to fix her and that you will become a priority by being in this long-term relationship. They're coming to the relationship as they are. And if your needs are not being met and you are not being made a priority at that point in time, you have to believe them. And I think for me, I didn't when I was that young. I didn't believe that things wouldn't change because I liked who they were and I liked what they were all about and all of the other stuff, but I didn't necessarily like the way that they were treating me. And so I thought that that would change if I could just be enough for them. And that's a self-esteem, self-confidence issue, right? That's an all on me. But I think this was a message that my 22-year-old self definitely could have used more of.
Yes. Well, and I think priority does not mean that you are top of the list to the exclusion necessarily of everything else. Maybe that's the case, but I think, especially for me, priority was I was a part of his decision making process, just as he's a part of my decision making process. Do I always put time with him at the top of the list? Not necessarily, but I make, like, oh, I know that he typically has these nights free, so I will try to schedule the one thing I want to do on a night that I know that he's not free. So it's taking that other person into consideration when you're making plans, when you're figuring out time to spend to each other. That's what I was looking for. Somebody who was going to keep me top of mind, being like, oh, maybe Lisa would like to do this, or I know she's got class this night, so I can do X, Y, or Z. So taking that other person into consideration and making the relationship the priority, and not necessarily to the exclusion of never getting to see family, never getting to see friends, but in, combining them into your decision making process. And hopefully that leads to you guys figuring out something that works for the both of you.
Right. And it's so much better now that I understand that. Like my life is just better now that I understand what that means. And that, I think a lot of times when you're trying to become or trying to teach somebody to make you a priority in their life, I think for me, that was the catalyst for this codependent behavior that I had exhibited at some point in my life. And breaking free from that and recovering from that codependency and really understanding what that looks like. I think that there was a lot of growth in that. And I think that I needed to go through that in my life to learn where I'm at. But I also hope that nobody else makes those same mistakes, and hopes that you understand, hopes that people understand what it's like and what that looks like to find that healthy balance in a relationship where you are taking somebody else's feelings, opinions, schedule into account and under consideration, but at the same time, not losing yourself or your life in that process.
Yep. Yep to all of that, right? All the things that we could go back and tell our 20-year-old selves, right?
For sure. For sure.
So if there are any other advice that we should be giving to 20-year-old selves, have any other topics that you think your 20-year-old self would have needed to hear, we want to know. So email us at soyou'readytodate@gmail.com. Or if there are just comments or questions or anything that you want to hear as a podcast episode, or stories that you want to share, we would love to hear them. We're hopefully going to work on getting some stories together so that we can do a listener stories episode one of these days. So make sure you're sending that to soyou'readytodate@gmail.com. And we thank you again for joining us on what is always a wonderful adventure as we figure out and discuss new and interesting topics. So come back next week. We'll have something new and fun to discuss, and we will see you all later.